Whisper, but with a thunderclap, shattering illusions and exposing the raw ambitions that drive world events. In moments like these, reality is often more audacious than any conspiracy theory, more brazen than the wildest rumors whispered in the shadows. On June 17, 2025, former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, in a revealing interview with Steve Bannon, stripped away the official justifications for the war on Iran. He spoke with a candor rarely seen from someone of his stature, making headlines around the world. Flynn declared that the US-backed Israeli assault is fundamentally about weakening China and securing US global dominance. He described the conflict as a calculated move in a much larger geopolitical chess game. This was no accidental slip, it was a clear admission, one that peeled back the curtain on the true motivations behind the war. The attacks on Iran are the opening moves in a much larger undeclared conflict. What we are witnessing is not just a regional skirmish, but the first act in a global contest for supremacy. The supposed nuclear threat is just a pretext, a convenient narrative to justify military intervention and rally public support. The real goal is regime change in Tehran, removing a key obstacle to US hegemony in the Middle East. By toppling Iran's government, Washington seeks to redraw the balance of power in the region. With Iran out of the way, Washington aims to pivot fully to confronting China, its main rival in a new Cold War. The Middle East becomes a stepping stone in a much broader campaign. The war in Iran is not the main event but a brutal prelude to a global power struggle. The stakes are nothing less than the future of international order. Flynn argued that an Israeli victory backed by the US would project an image of unchallenged American dominance, intimidating rivals and disciplining allies. It's a show of force meant to send a message to the world. This is not about defense, but about preemptively crushing any coalition that could threaten US supremacy. The strategy is aggressive, calculated, and relentless. The public is told of imminent threats, while behind the scenes, the architects of empire are playing a long game for total control, with China as the ultimate target. In this new era, every move is part of a high-stakes battle for global dominance. The bombs falling on Iran may be Israeli, but the fingerprints of another power are unmistakable. The technology, intelligence, and political cover behind these attacks are all American. From advanced guidance systems to real-time satellite data, the US provides Israel with the tools and information it needs to strike with precision and confidence. Flynn confirmed the US is not just supporting but actively enabling Israel's campaign, providing weapons, intelligence, and training. American advisors work side by side with Israeli forces, ensuring every operation is coordinated and effective. Despite public denials from President Trump and Secretary of State Rubio, US forces intercepted Iranian missiles, exposing America's direct involvement. These actions reveal a reality that official statements try to obscure. This act erased any plausible deniability, transforming what could have remained a regional conflict into a direct US-Iran confrontation, with global consequences. The US continues to supply Israel, playing a double game, distancing itself publicly while ensuring Israel has the means to achieve their shared goals. Behind closed doors, the flow of arms and support never stops. The real aim is to destroy the axis of resistance, an alliance led by Iran, including Syria and Hezbollah, that challenges US-Israeli dominance in the region and threatens their strategic interests. Israel acts as the regional enforcer, doing the dirty work on the ground, while the US minimizes its own risks and casualties, maintaining plausible deniability. This arrangement lets Washington pursue its ambitions with minimal direct cost, perpetuating its empire by proxy and keeping its own hands clean in the eyes of the world. The war on Iran is not just about the Middle East, it's a key move in Washington's broader pivot to Asia, a strategy aimed squarely at countering China's growing influence on the world stage. For US policymakers, Iran is more than a regional adversary. It's a crucial piece in the global chessboard, standing between American ambitions and China's rise. US strategists increasingly see China as the only real challenger to American supremacy, both economically and militarily, and are recalibrating their global posture accordingly. Yet, Iran's fiercely independent foreign policy and deepening ties to the East, especially with China and Russia, block a full US pivot to Asia and complicate Washington's plans. Regime change in Tehran from the US perspective would free up significant military and diplomatic resources, and sever a vital link in the emerging Eurasian alliance that is challenging US dominance across the continent. Iran is crucial to China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, serving as a bridge for infrastructure, trade and energy routes that connect East and West. Its energy resources and strategic location are lifelines for China's energy security. Breaking Iran would disrupt these vital arteries and send shockwaves through global markets. The US hopes that a decisive victory in Iran will send a chilling message to Beijing, demonstrating American resolve and military reach, forcing China onto the defensive and making it reconsider its global ambitions. But this strategy is fraught with risk. History shows that regime change rarely brings stability and often leads to chaos and blowback, while China and Russia, both with deep interests in Iran, are unlikely to stand by and watch their ally fall without responding. By targeting Iran, the US is striking at a key node in a rapidly forming multipolar network, risking not just regional instability, but the possibility of a much wider conflict. The aggressive move could easily backfire, strengthening the very alliances it seeks to break, and pushing China, Russia and Iran even closer together in opposition to US power. The pivot to Asia, originally meant to contain China and secure American interests, may instead provoke the very great power conflict it was supposed to prevent, setting the stage for a new era of global rivalry and uncertainty. For some in the Trump administration, this war is more than geopolitics, it's a crusade. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and others frame the conflict as a spiritual battle against China, Iran, and the international left. This ideology justifies extreme measures, casting the US as the last bastion of freedom against authoritarianism. Iran is painted as a fanatical outpost of evil, demanding total victory, not compromise. This crusade mentality mobilizes a fervent domestic base, turning foreign policy into a matter of faith. But it erodes rational statecraft, making catastrophic miscalculations more likely. Defining the enemy as evil closes off diplomacy, risking a self-fulfilling prophecy of endless conflict. The US isn't just fighting Iran, it's attacking the idea of a multipolar world. The growing partnership between Iran, Russia and China threatens US dominance, forming the backbone of a new order outside Washington's control. This axis bypasses the US dollar, conducts joint military exercises, and blocks US initiatives in global forums. The war on Iran targets the weakest link, aiming to fracture the alliance and isolate its members. But instead of breaking the bloc, US aggression is driving Russia and China closer to Iran. The attack on Iran warns Moscow and Beijing they could be next, accelerating their integration. Washington's gamble may be cementing the very alliance it hopes to destroy. The US risks hastening the decline of its own unipolar order. The war is forging a hardened anti-hegemonic bloc in response to a common threat. Hat began as a limited strike has spiraled, pulling in regional powers and exposing the folly of a contained war. Pakistan has entered the conflict, sending Chinese-made jets to support Iran and warning it could retaliate if Israel uses nuclear weapons. This introduces a nuclear dimension, escalating the crisis to a global level. Iraq, meanwhile, is caught in the crossfire, its airspace violated, its government powerless, and US troops on its soil now prime targets. Pakistan's move signals a realignment, reflecting China's growing influence and the fracturing of old alliances. Nations are being forced to choose sides, often against Washington's interests. The regional escalation exposes the recklessness of the initial attack, as the conflict now threatens to engulf the entire region. The chessboard has expanded, creating a multi-front crisis with global implications. The war on Iran unfolds amid a global shift, led by the expanded BRICS bloc, now representing over half the world's population and 41% of its economy. BRICS Plus is building parallel institutions and promoting trade in their own currencies, directly challenging US dollar dominance. The attack on Iran, a new BRICS member, is a warning to nations seeking independence from the Western-led order. Washington hopes to disrupt BRICS cohesion and intimidate others, but the war only highlights the need for alternatives. The unilateral assault validates BRICS's push for a world based on sovereignty, not US dictate. Instead of derailing BRICS, the war is likely to strengthen it, accelerating the move toward multipolarity. The US is fighting to preserve its privileged position, but the world is already changing. The war on Iran may be the catalyst that unites the global South against unipolar dominance. To understand today's conflict, we must revisit 1953, when the CIA and British intelligence overthrew Iran's elected leader for nationalizing oil. Operation Ajax crushed Iranian democracy, installing the Shah as a US client, a trauma seared into Iran's memory. The 1953 coup is seen as the original sin of US intervention, exposing the hollowness of American rhetoric about democracy. Today's war is viewed as a continuation of this history, another attempt at regime change to restore U.S. control. The pretext has shifted, but the goal remains: install a compliant government in Tehran. This legacy of mistrust makes diplomacy nearly impossible, as Iranians see U.S. promises as unreliable. The ghosts of 1953 fuel today's animosity, making the war a renewed fight for national independence. As the world watches, the real question emerges: is this war about security, ideology, or economic supremacy? Experts like MIT's Ted Postel argue U.S. bombs can't destroy Iran's nuclear sites, making the stated goal unattainable without catastrophic escalation. The crusade rhetoric serves to mobilize support, but conveniently aligns with the interests of the military-industrial complex and Wall Street. Perpetual conflict justifies massive defense budgets and preserves the global dominance of the U.S. dollar. Ultimately, this is a war to maintain an economic order threatened by China and BRICS. The U.S. is using military power to compensate for economic decline, trying to bomb its way back to unchallenged supremacy. The explosions in Iran are not just about one country, they're a violent challenge to the aspirations of billions for a more just and sovereign world.